Colombia hosts the fourth summit between the community of Latin American and Caribbean states and the European Union in the city of Santa Marta. The Honduran people mobilized en masse to defend their country and peace after attempts to destabilize the general elections on November 30th. And U.S. President Donald Trump demanded on Sunday that senators eliminate the program known as Obamacare, a measure that would directly affect the lives of millions of people. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. Colombia hosts the fourth summit between the community of Latin American and Caribbean states and the European Union in the city of Santa Marta. The meeting is being held at the Santa Marta Convention Center and will continue until next Monday. The objective of these activities is to establish lines of cooperation between the blocs, as well as to review combined regional problems that require a roadmap and coordination to achieve positive results. Colombian President Gustavo Petro emphasized that Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean must unify their criteria for denouncing any barbarity that goes against the principles of multilateralism and global democracy.
And what is freedom today? What is democracy today when there are bombs being dropped in Gaza, and even now bombs are being dropped, and a country like this has been massacred? And now there are missiles being launched in the Caribbean. The same manufacturing of the ones that are dropped in Gaza are being dropped here over poor people. In this city, one died.
And during his intervention at the fourth CELAC-EU summit, Colombian President Gustavo Petro reiterated the status of the region as a zone of peace and remembered the history of Latin America as the heart of independence processes in the region.
The Caribbean century of light brought independence to America, to the north, to the south, and to the center. This is a sea of democratic revolution.
Earlier during a press conference, Colombian Foreign Minister Rosa Villavicencio reaffirmed her rejection of war and her commitment to respecting sovereignty for this fourth high-level meeting.
There is support in the rejection of all types of war, all types of disrespect for sovereignty, but above all, in its participation in the major initiatives we have as a region that have to do with energy transitions towards clean energy, closing the digital divide, and addressing the issues of climate change, values shared with the European Union.
Meanwhile, in Ecuador, the National Assembly authorized the government of Daniel Noboa to use public funds for the campaign of the constitutional referendum that seeks to allow the establishment of foreign military bases in the country. In this way, the legislature aligns itself with the executive's plans in its campaign for the yes vote ahead of the referendum on November 16. The consultation seeks to eliminate the constitutional prohibition that prevents the installation of foreign military bases in the country, a measure that has generated strong opposition. Social organizations have denounced that the initiative represents a surrender of national sovereignty to the United States and warned that the ecosystem of the Galapagos Islands is at risk. In response, a broad alliance of social collectives and citizens' revolution are already organizing the campaign for the no vote across the country. And in Nicaragua, co-president Daniel Ortega affirmed that the peoples of the world face a weakened U.S. imperialism as a common enemy. The commanders' statements were made during the ceremony held to promote general commissioners of the Ministry of the Interior, as well as to pay tribute to the 49th anniversary of the passing of Commander Carlos Fonseca Amador. Also, the heads of the Nicaraguan executive affirmed their commitment to continue building a better revolution in the world, aimed at giving dignity to the peoples despite the constant threats from the North American government. On the other hand, the leaders reflected the position of several allied governments in Latin America that see cooperation with China as an alternative for development and a way to challenge Washington's historical interference in the region.
We are witnessing a period in which it has become an enemy, no matter how much military power it had,
potencia económica que tenga, se ha ido.
no matter how much economic power it had, has disappeared, has been diminished, has been discredited, has been
Han
weakened.
venido creciendo otras fuerzas.
And in the meantime, other forces have been growing, and among these forces, the People's Republic of China stands out.
La República Popular China.
We have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro sent a letter to the presidents and heads of states of CELAC on the occasion of the summit meeting in Santa Marta, Colombia. The president wrote, "I come to you with the voice of the Venezuelan people and with the memory of our history as our commitment and guide. We meet today to reaffirm that the union of our America is not a rhetorical gesture, but the condition of our freedom and the key to our dignity." The letter continues, "Today, two centuries later, the forms of siege have changed, but not its essence. Naval and air formations are being deployed in the Caribbean, including state-of-the-art aircraft carriers, missile destroyers, and nuclear submarines, maneuvers and attacks that have caused the death of civilians on the high seas." The head of state added that Venezuela declares with absolute clarity it does not and will not accept any form of tutelage. We do not accept that under euphemisms such as security or the fight against drug trafficking, attempts are being made to impose the old Monroe Doctrine, which seeks to turn our America into a stage for invasions and coup aimed at regime change. On the other hand, the Venezuelan president affirmed that today, in the face of the threat of war in the Caribbean and the executions that have been denounced by the UN, we are obliged to preserve peace in the region, to join forces as countries and with one voice demand the immediate cessation of military attacks and threats against our people. The letter concludes with, "The whole world knows that in Venezuela, Colombia, and throughout our region, we love peace as a hard-won right, which is why we are obliged to face the challenges of the present with the motto of Liberator Simón Bolívar, peace will be my port, my glory, my reward, my hope, my joy, and all that is precious in the world." In other topics, the Honduran people mobilized en masse to defend their country and peace after attempts to destabilize the general elections on November 30th. The presidential candidate for the Liberty and Refoundation Party, Cristi Moncada, condemned attempts to manipulate the results and weaken the electoral process. The presidential candidate warned that those involved in 26 audio recordings in which they discussed boycotting transportation and the election results transmission system will be brought to trial. Moncada affirmed that fair elections will be held and urged the Honduran people to vote for peace and national sovereignty.
They made a very dark plan, but we figured it out. We took their 26 audios. They have been discovered. They only need to be called to a trial and be condemned because they wanted to steal again the democracy.
Also in Honduras, an election simulation is held ahead of the general elections on November 30th. This Sunday's general drill is a crucial test to verify the logistics of the elections that will be held throughout the country in November. The day will include opening polling stations, registering voters, counting preliminary votes, and sending voting records in real time. More than 6.5 million Hondurans are called upon to cast their vote to elect a new president, 128 members of the National Congress, and other political officials. In our topics on Saturday, thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets and squares of communes across the country to form the Bolivarian Basic Committees. With the noise and color that characterizes the mobilizations of the South American nation, the installation of these structures created by the Bolivarian Revolution began. The activity, which continues on Sunday, consolidates this comprehensive tool for organization, production, and social defense, while unifying the political, economic, and cultural dimensions of the communes. This event will reinforce the foundations for the celebration of the fourth consultation of the communal project on November 23rd, and these structures will also guarantee its security and integrity.
We are still renewing our United Socialist Party of Venezuela. According to the instructions of our leader Diosdado Cabello, we are going to give it a boost, a reboost, after the attacks we have been receiving for more than 20 years from the empire. And not just the American empire, but the great empires of the world. From England, from Europe, which has always wanted to take away our identity.
I am here participating in the election that has been planned since the 5th Congress of the CUV, in which nominations will be made from the grassroots for integration into the new political movement, in the construction of the party's new political structure.
We are here for that reason, as you say, to renew the old structures we had within the CUV, which, although they were not bad, we have to renew. And to show it is important to show the world and show the empire that we are here, that our revolution is not a president, it is not a minister, it is not a civil servant, we are a united people who have consciousness.
And U.S. President Donald Trump demanded senators to eliminate the program known as Obamacare, a measure that would directly affect the lives of millions of people. The Senate meeting over the weekend in response to the serious national situation caused by the government shutdown has been asked by the head of state to eliminate the program and redirect the funds so that direct payments can be made. In addition to not accompanying the suggestion with any form of oversight or audit, the president could increase the number of people without health insurance, which is already significant. Some Democrat lawmakers have rejected the suggestion mainly because he is making it in the midst of the longest government shutdown in history, where hundreds of thousands of federal workers do not even have the resources to purchase basic foodstuffs. And in Portugal, thousands rally against labor reforms promoted by the government of Prime Minister Luis Montenegro. The National Workers' Union called for the withdrawal of the labor reform package on the grounds that it violates the rights of the sector. Furthermore, they demand improvements in the minimum wage and denounced that the law would facilitate the dismissal of workers. If the government's proposal is approved, it will be sent to Parliament, where it is expected to be approved with the votes of the far right. The organizers of the demonstration announced a general strike for December 11th. And ahead of Tuesday's parliamentary election in Iraq, members of Iraqi security forces and displaced people living in camps cast their ballots on Sunday in early voting. Election officials announced that the electoral process moved forward without interruptions and highlighted the discipline and organization of all regional governments. For this voting day, officials set up 809 voting centers and more than 4,100 polling stations. An estimated 1.3 million army and security personnel and around 26,000 displaced people are eligible to vote. The election, with 7,744 candidates, will determine if Prime Minister al-Sudani secures a second term. We have our second break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final break, don't go away. Welcome back. The Palestinian Prisoner Society denounced the arrest of 442 Palestinians in illegal Israeli raids during the month of October in the occupied West Bank. The organization stated that Israeli occupation forces are conducting raids in occupied Jerusalem and other nearby areas with the objective of kidnapping civilians, in violation of the agreement reached in the truce between Israel and Hamas. According to reports, 3 women and at least 33 children are among those detained, most of them in the Belen Governorate. The recent raids were accompanied by interrogation about land in the West Bank, as well as assaults by Israeli settlers. And in Palestine as well, the Ministry of Health of Gaza updated the total of fatal victims from the Israeli genocide, surpassing 69,000 people. The official total of fatal victims now stands at 69,169. This figure was reached after adding death from various causes, such as unregistered burials or bodies under the rubble. The figures detailing the thousands of Palestinians killed by the Zionist aggression reinforce the international demand for a permanent ceasefire and the immediate end of the siege that has turned the Gaza Strip into an extermination camp. Despite the ceasefire in effect since October 10th, the death toll continues to rise. In the last 72 hours alone, hospitals in the enclave have recorded 241 new deaths from Israeli attacks, with 614 injured, and rescue teams have managed to recover the bodies of 522 people from the rubble. The Vietnamese government implements natural disaster forecasting and prevention measures following the climate phenomena that hit the country in 2025. The Ministry of Agriculture and the Environment reported that the latest natural disasters have been extremely intense and unusual in nature. Up to this date, large-scale typhoons have hit the central region, causing torrential rains and flooding. In this regard, the national government emphasized the importance of conducting a comprehensive assessment to mitigate risks and human losses. An international team of scientists has warned that the world's penguins could be at risk from the combined effects of extreme weather. Let's see.
Some of Earth's most loved creatures, but they face increasing threats from the combined impact of extreme climate events. That's according to a new study that shows all 18 species of penguins in the southern hemisphere may be vulnerable on our changing planet. The study, published in Global Change Biology, analyzed 3 decades of ocean and atmospheric data from 1993 to 2023.
In this study, we don't see like a direct effect on penguins, like how extreme events are shaping the life of penguins, because we don't have like this type of data. Like, for instance, to see that, we would need like population trends or breeding success. So what we aim here was to using penguins as sentinels of the southern hemisphere. With sentinels, I mean that penguins are important by itself because they are charismatic species and they are affected by extreme events, but they can also highlight areas that are important for many other species. For instance, penguins living in Antarctica, they also live in a really unique environment, and all the other species living there, like krill or many benthic species, are also affected by these extreme events. So our aim was to see which areas in the southern hemisphere are ecologically important. So we know that because we are using penguins, and are also affected by a high degree of cumulative extreme events effect.
The study found that African, snares, emperor, Adlai and Galapagos penguins are the most exposed to these events. The scientists say it's a trend that's likely to continue as the planet warms, although some species may be more capable of surviving on the changing planet.
The interesting thing I would say about the Galapagos is that, yes, it is the one more affected when we look at the metrics, no? But also, when we look at the trends, it's the only penguin species that is not facing an increasing trend. So what this says to us is that actually this species kind of used to these extreme events somehow, or at least like it's not something new in their area, and so that makes the species like more capable to face these extreme events.
The solution, they say, is to identify high-risk areas, account for local human stressors such as fishing or tourism, and adopt flexible, adaptive management. Although the study authors say more work is needed to study the actual penguin populations, their research is a warning of what could happen to these lovable species if we don't take action.
Well, at least we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.